Hello, I'm Mark Price. I'd like to talk to you today about moving from ordinary to extraordinary. The gospel today is from Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. While the crowd was pressing in on Jesus and listening to the word of God, he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret. He saw two boats there alongside the lake. The fishermen had disembarked and were washing their nets. Getting into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, he asked him to put out to shore a short distance, and then he sat down and taught the crowds from the boat. After he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and lower your nets for a catch." Simon said in reply, "Master, we have worked hard all night and have caught nothing. But at your command, I will lower the nets." When they had done this, they caught a great number of fish, and their nets were tearing. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. They came and filled both boats so that the boats were in danger of sinking. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at the knees of Jesus and said, "Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." For astonishment at the catch of fish they had made seized him and all those with him, and likewise James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners of Simon. Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching men." When they brought their boats to the shore, they left everything and followed him. The Gospel of the Lord. So here we have the famous scene of Jesus calling Peter to follow him. And it truly is taking the ordinary and making him extraordinary. And that's what Christ does to all of us. A couple thoughts from the readings. And then I'm going to end this by letting you hear from Simon Peter himself. He's going to tell you about that scene, what it was like being at the shore and Jesus coming to him. But first, some thoughts on the readings today. This is a reading where Jesus is trying to teach people. They're crowding in on him, so he gets out onto a boat, and the boat is he asks Peter to push the boat a little bit away from shore, and he spends time preaching. But then he asks Peter to go to the center of the lake and to drop his nets. And of course, we know from the reading that he caught a multitude of fish. And then Peter, when they get back to shore, goes to Jesus, drops to his knees and says, "Get out of my sight, I am a sinful man." You see, what that suggests to us is that when we see ourselves not in the light of what we think about ourselves, which generally is a little bit better than maybe what we really are, but when we see ourselves in the light of Christ, we see ourselves as sinful people. We see our blemishes. We see those shortcomings. And we read in the book of Daniel, where Daniel is talking about a vision he has of Jesus. And as he sees the vision of Jesus, all of a sudden he sees himself as being a person with unclean hands, and he surrounds himself with people of unclean lips. So in the light of God, in the light of Jesus, we see ourselves for who we really are with all of our blemishes. God says, "I see you as the amazing being that I created. I touched you, I knew you before you were even born, and I called you for the purpose of proclaiming my son." This is who we are in the eyes of God. We are extraordinary. We might see ourselves as ordinary, especially in the light of Christ, but we are truly extraordinary in the mind and the eyes of God. The world sees us as ordinary, wants to keep us ordinary. The world does everything it can to hold us at bay, not allow us to be the extraordinary people that God made us. An example of that is this COVID-19 and the powers that be in their response to it. What did they do? They cut off the three things that are most important to making us who we are. They cut off our faith, they cut off our education, and they cut off our ability to work. Those are the three things that help to define who we are as people. Our ability to know faith, to grow in faith. They limited or completely squashed that for so long. Education, they not only limited our ability to get better educated and to grow in our education, but for our own children, sadly, possibly hurting an entire generation of people by what they've done. And they've limited our ability to work by either closing down our places of work or keeping it so up in the air to where we don't even know when we can go back or start again or what the rules are going to be tomorrow. Here's what they are today. Tomorrow they may change. So the powers that be have used this pandemic as a way to control us, to keep us ordinary. But God, the God who created us, says, you're not ordinary, you're extraordinary. And when we become people of faith, when we accept the Lord in our lives as people of faith, we go from the ordinary, which the world sees us as and wants to keep us at, and we become extraordinary. You see Simon Peter, this fisherman who, when Jesus meets him, is having the worst day of his life, caught nothing, out all night, caught nothing. He was feeling down. Have you ever had a day like that where you say, what a wasted day, what a wasted night, I accomplished nothing? This is how Peter was feeling when Jesus came to him. And then Jesus says, don't give up on yourself. You see the ordinary, you see the sinful, I see the extraordinary. So take your boat out, drop the net, and you'll catch fish. And that's what he did. So Peter listened to Jesus, and he accepted the call of Jesus in today's reading and says, yes, I will follow you. In fact, the last line in the reading says he gave up everything to follow Christ. In the second chapter of Acts, we read about his fulfilling this command, this call of Jesus. He's preaching, Simon Peter, this lowly fisherman, is now preaching to a group of people, multitude of people, and 3,000 people are converted that very day. In the fourth chapter of Acts, it says that he is preaching, and 5,000 men are called that day. So this lowly fisherman who was feeling down and out about his day is called by Christ, and all of a sudden he goes from ordinary to extraordinary. And by the way, it works that way for us too. In Paul's letter to the church of Corinth, he writes, the foolish are called to confound the powerful. The weak are called to confound the mighty. You see, we are not ordinary in the eyes of God. We are ordinary in the eyes of the world. We should open our eyes to God and listen for his call. When we hear that call, we should say yes, because we know that in accepting that invitation to become a person of faith, we're saying, I want to go from ordinary to extraordinary. And we know that this is the God who can take us there. Let's listen now to Simon Peter, who was there. He was going to talk about this particular day when Jesus came to him and that call and how he felt about it. So Simon Peter in his own words.
One day I'm on the shore of Lake Gennesaret. What am I doing? Who said fishing? Have you not been paying attention here? I'm repairing those nets of mine. And all of a sudden I looked up, and there was Jesus standing right in front of me. How he got there, I do not know. He was the quietest walker, I think, of anyone I've ever known. And he's standing there, and I said, yes, Rabbi, how are you? And he asked this question. He asked, how was fishing last night? And I said, well, Rabbi, don't ask. Don't even ask. It was the worst night I can remember in my entire life. I do not remember any night worse than this. Don't even ask. And he said, well, here's what I would like you to do. He says, I would like you to take those nets you're working on and put them back up onto the boat. And then he says, I want you to push off and go to the center of the lake. He says, and then I want you to take those nets and throw them off the boat. Now he asked, so what side do you normally throw your nets off? And I said, well, we fishermen, we throw them off the right side. He said, yes, of course. He says, I want you to throw them off the left. I would come to find with Jesus that he was oft times asking me to do things a little different than I was used to. Well, when he finished, I said to him this. I said, well, I can certainly see that you are a carpenter. Yes, because you know absolutely nothing about fishing. I said, firstly, you do not go out at this time of day. Do we have any fishermen here? Anyone who fishes? No one here fishes? Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. Yeah, you fish, yes. Well, of course you know then you don't go out late morning, do you? You don't go, the fish are doing, I told him that. I said, you don't go out. You would tell him the same thing. Late morning, the fish are doing other things. They're doing fish things, I told him. You don't go. And second, you never go to the center of the lake. Any fisherman. You go to the inlets and the sides, and that's what you do. That's what fishermen know this. And lastly, you always throw your nets off the right side. And there's an important reason for that. Tradition. It's a tradition. You throw them off the right side of the boat. Something I learned about Jesus this day. The more you argue with him, the more he just stands there and looks at you. Yeah, gives you plenty of time to realize that he might be right. Well, I got tired of hearing myself talk, and I said, fine, I'll do it. And I took the nets and I threw them back onto the boat, and I pushed the boat off, and I'm heading for the center of the lake. And the whole time I'm going, I'm mumbling under my breath. I will not tell you what I was saying. But I will tell you this. I went out for one reason and one reason alone. Do you know what it was? To prove him wrong. God help me. And I reached the center of the lake, and I took my nets and I began to throw them off the right. I said, the fisherman said off the left. And so I took my nets and I threw them off the left side. My beloved, do you know what happened? It was yes, you could...
You guys caught a lot of fish.
Yeah, they caught a lot of fishes, to say the least. I have never in my life seen anything like it. It's as if the nets themselves were bait. The fish swam to the nets, and I could not believe what I was seeing. And I called to my friend James and John. I said, bring your boats, and they brought their boats. Do you know that we filled 3 boats to over capacity? Yes. And by the time we got back to shore, I ran to Jesus and I dropped down to my knees. And I said, please forgive me, for I am a sinful man. And then I said, leave my sight. Well, Jesus, he put his hands onto my shoulders and he helped me to raise up. And then he said this. He said, Simon Peter, son of John, will you come and follow me? He asked me to follow him. Me, Simon. Well, I said to him, yes, of course I will. Yes, I will follow you. And then he said, I will make you a fisher of men. Well, I had no idea what he meant. Throwing nets on people. Well, the Romans did it, didn't they? Yes.
Well, there you have it. Simon Peter is called by Jesus. He accepts the call. So for us in our life, we have to be open to the call of Jesus, accept that call when it comes our way, and then prepare ourselves from going from ordinary to extraordinary. Remember, the world wants to keep you ordinary. The world wants to keep their foot on your head, keep you down. God is saying, I want you to be everything I made you to be. I want you to go from ordinary to extraordinary. This is what we get in following Christ. Amen? This is Mark Price. Thanks for listening.